Okay, guys, how you doing? Dave here, just going through some of the content we covered before, just so if any of you's missed the seminars that I hosted in Sports Physio Ireland. So quickly straight into it. I think this is one of our more powerful slides. So it's one of the expressions I say is don't steady the horses. So basically during World War II, just before the Americans entered the war, they were studying the big guns of the Germans. They found that they could fire a shell every 10 seconds. The best the Americans could do was one every 30 seconds. They assigned a colonel to study the matter. He found that the gunners were told to wait 20 seconds after firing a shell. When he asked why, everyone said because it's in the manual. The colonel went back to examine the World War I manual. It said, fire the shot and wait 20 seconds. Frustrated, he went back to the Civil War manuals. They said, fire the cannon and wait 20 seconds to steady the horses. Now, I love this story, but it's surprising that few people don't get the moral of it. But the moral of the story is very simple. In the biggest and most technically advanced war of its time, World War II, they were still doing stuff that was being done in the Civil War in America hundreds of years before, because the manual said that's the way you should do it. So basically, we need to, as physios, as strength conditioning coaches, whatever we are, we need to be constantly making sure that we're at the cutting edge. And the only way to do that is experience, is education, attending seminars, etc., etc. It's just a very powerful point. So if I ever say don't steady the horses to some people, now you know what it means. So we went through basically some of the coolest, fanciest workouts that you'd ever seen. Some of us came back with, isometric holds and eccentric dips with Franz Bosch stuff, with wobble boards and with slosh pipes and bands and kettlebells and all this cool stuff that's out there nowadays. And we had some bit of engagement on that, which was good fun. We parked that there, and then we moved on to some common injuries. So we've common injuries. What sort of common injuries would an active person who goes to the gym, works 9 to 5, has 2 kids, and we just said what would the common injuries be, and just people coming back with low back pain was huge, knee pain was huge, neck pain was huge. You know, um, all the basic stuff that we see time and time again came back. Um, and we basically just discussed that for a while, and we had a good discussion on that. So I went through some aha moments that were in my career, and I think as a physio, a lot of what I do, I was educated by physios. So I think, and it's probably held me back in some ways, but in other ways, it's vastly helped me out. So Charlie Weingroff is someone I'd like you to dig out and look up. He came up with the things of training as rehab. Check out his work. Joint by Joint Approach to Training by Mike Boyle was, I think, first class. Just Google those two phrases and the names of the author. Gray Cook, Athletic Body and Balance. I think the first three chapters in that book are unbelievable. And if you haven't read them, you need to read them. Read the whole book. But it's a fantastic piece. The goal of training is not to improve how the body looks, but rather how it moves. I mean, we know that, but these are the forefathers of this sort of thing. Shirley Sharman, if I was a physio, I'd read her books. I mean, it's as simple as that. And go on YouTube and look up the talks she's gave to physio grads in America. It's first class, very, 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 very accessible, not too convoluted in science, which is great for the likes of me. But a lovely phrase she comes up with: anytime you see an injured muscle, look for the weak synergist. So anecdotally, we can kind of say you pull your hamstring, you're probably gonna have weak glutes. Now that's a bit of a generalization, but it's for your average punter coming off the street, that's a fairly decent summarization. This is basically Mike Boyle's joint by joint approach. I don't know if even Mike invented this, but I'm going to give him the credit. So we can see the neck region, we want that stable. The thoracic region, we want that mobile. The lower back region, we want that stable. The hips, we want mobile. The knees, we want stable. And the ankles, we want mobile. So basically, if we think of the knee as the bastard child of the hip and the ankle, if we have a knee and a hip that's very immobile, and you're playing multi-directional sports, your knee's going to be in trouble. If we have a very stiffened and tight upper back, thoracic spine, our lower back can be in trouble. So it's a very good way of looking at things. And thoracic spines are tough to get more mobile, but at least I've had good success trying getting some increased movement there, because the margins in the human body are very slight, as you well know. So we just have an appreciation of this. Everything I do programming wise would have this in the back of my mind. Janda was another aha moment for me. So this is very sort of physio-y, but no harm. So upper cross syndrome, Janda described, is characterized by a facilitation of the upper traps, levator, sternocleidomastoid, and pec muscles, as well as inhibition of the deep cervical flexors, lower traps, and serratus anterior. How many of your clients coming in off the street won't have a bit of that? And lower cross syndrome is characterized by the facilitation of thoracolumbar extensors, rec fem, iliopsoas, as well as inhibition of the abdominals, particular transverse abdominis, and the gluteal muscles. How many of your clients coming in off the street won't have that? Nice way of looking at it. It was an aha moment when I heard that name, Janda. It's a little bit over my head, but it was certainly an aha moment for me as a trainer. Juan Carlos Santana was a bit of a pioneer back in the day. Still is. You can go on his Instagram. He's some stuff that's a bit bonkers for me, but some other stuff that's first class. Some of his original books I would really advise you to read. He was talking about the core as a serape effect, or just this article he wrote in April 2003 was really expanded my knowledge of that area. Just stopped me doing sit-ups with clients, different things like that. Just had a bit of a better appreciation of functional training. There, I said it. So we went through this physiotherapy. You can make it as complicated or as easy as you like, in my opinion. All the cool tools in your college education should supplement all the stuff we've been teaching you. It shouldn't replace. And I think some physios coming in thinks, oh, it's just personal training. Well, what's wrong with personal training? if it's state of the art and if it's fixing the client, I mean, who cares? Basically, like, I mean, I keep saying this. I mean, an FMS for a physiotherapist for me is probably a waste of time. You have better tools in your toolbox, cooler tools, more medical based tools. So, but I want you to think of the system you use in Sports Physio Ireland. For me, the state of the art. I know my role as a strength and conditioning coach. I refer out. I love referring out to like-minded individuals, and I want you guys to be the guy or the gal that I refer to. And that amount of people I would willingly refer clients to or athletes to is shrinking by the day. And that's scary thought. And again, there's more to physio than sports people, but I'm only referring to you. My role in society is to train athletes, so that's all I'm interested in at the moment. Exos, if you don't know who Exos are, look them up. Look at their way of, approach of physiotherapy. It's first class. Evaluate, isolate, innervate, integrate. So a complete team approach from the physician physio to the strength coach all the way to the skill coach. And I made the point the way Joey would be able to, as a hurling man and as a football man, integrate some drills and stuff, or certainly ring the coach of said player and advise. That to me is gold standard. We all yap on about multidisciplinary. How many of us actually do it? How many of us actually get stuck in and ring the skill coach? You're going to build a serious caseload if you're ringing skill coaches or coaches, head coaches, managers all around this country saying, how you doing? I'm the physiotherapist of X, Y, Z. And you don't know that junior cup coach in a school that might be performing poorly. You don't know where that coach could end up. You don't know where that player could end up. I mean, it's all marketing at the end of the day as well. But look at that sequence. It's a work of art, and I think SPI should try and aspire to that as best they can. And I would say in your particular circumstance, the two words isolate, innervate, the three words evaluate, that's very much in your remit as chartered physiotherapists. You have a severe advantage over me. I can't isolate, and I don't want to. I know my role. And the only evaluation I do is, just from experience, knowing, what sort of injuries might be from just looking at a lot of them, but that's the end of it. You guys can do it all. The only thing you can't do is to integrate, but you can still make the phone calls. Training for me, what works? What have I doing this 12 years? What have I seen works? What have I seen doesn't work? So basically some cool tools out there. Foam rolling for me is whopper for our client base. Stretching, I think, is a must. And what's the first thing most physios do when a client pings a muscle? They get them stretching a different area to, it just seems to work. It's been around a long time. The best athletes I ever coached all seem to do a bit of stretching. Dynamic stretching I love just for the one word and one word only, movement. We don't move enough. We don't move in multi-planes of direction. So dynamic stretching gives us a cooler option. Um, but I still would like stretching in my paradigm. Plyometrics I think are awesome if done correctly. We went through a ton of them in the seminars. Basically, plyometrics is a Greek word. I suppose plyo is jump. I think, could be wrong on that. And metrics is obviously to measure. So basically, or Verkhoshansky, which is the forefather of plyometrics, basically called it the shock method. But basically, just improving that contractile property of the muscle. So that could be a ladder drill for someone, or that could be, in the case of a really elite athlete, an extremely high hurdle jump. Speed, obviously, wouldn't be a consideration of a punter off the street, but if a guy's playing soccer, rugby, any of the team sports, 10-meter sprints, timed, I think is awesome. 10 meters per second squared, they might move in a sprint. Name a weight training modality that comes close. Core, I just think is fundamental. I think we get lazy core training. I think we forget there's levels to core training. I think we forget that we have to go through the levels. And I think you can certainly, I always kind of like meat and potato lifts, like a big hex bar lift. They get a low back pain from it. Why? Generally speaking, poor core. Fix the core, they can lift heavier, and it's a nice way of going along with an athlete. I don't think an athlete's core can be strong enough. I think it's fleeting. I think that your core can switch off very quick, but I do think it's very important. If you look at that whole area, it's just like mushy. And so all that sort of fancy core training, I think, is a huge, powerful effect on our athletes and clients. Functional strength training, I'm a huge believer of. One leg training, multi-directional training, multi-planar training, one leg training, which I've covered already, hip dominant, knee dominant, all the stuff, push, pull, horizontal pull, vertical pull, all those things we need to hit. ESD is a fancy term for energy system development. The good news is a lot of your out of shape clients, you put them through a sequence like that. That's ESD. Bad news is I think with some of our clients that have been in 10, 12, 20 weeks, we're not doing enough ESD. We're not getting them physically fitter. I think we failed. Look at all the research for low back pain. Fitter you are, less but low back pain. I think being fit is an extremely important thing. I think sometimes through time constraints, I think we forget that. What's to stop us getting an extra bike, doing maybe 10 minutes of even base cardio, and putting a heart rate strap on them? It's hard. I know logistically it's tough, but I think it's something you might need to think about doing. So we went through this. What do these clients need? A 37-year-old office worker, sore back, sore knees, walks a lot, taking a run and tag rugby to get fit. 23-year-old county hurler, pain-free, fit. 29-year-old computer geek now needs to get fit, poor posture, motor moron, which is a sort of euphemism for someone who moves really poorly. And 31-year-old golfer, office worker, patella tendonitis. What do those clients need when they come in the door? And I would say there's more similarities than there is differences. The 23-year-old county hurler that's pain-free doesn't mean he's movement deficiency-free. It probably means he's kind of a ticking time bomb. In my experience, if he hasn't had a really good S&C coach, he's done too much push. His glutes aren't fired up. He's probably doing a lot of stuff that make him look good, but not a lot of stuff that makes him move. But I don't know, but it's just a generalization. The office worker, again, just needs lots of soft tissue work, lots of education on diet. I could go on and go on. The computer geek will have to get just lots of pull, lots of simple stuff that gets him successful. I think fitness for that computer geek, when is he ever working on any form of conditioning? And the 31-year-old golfer, office worker, patella tendonitis, well, you're going to fix that injury and you got to work around it. Maybe it's bilateral patella tendonitis. So that nips off a few options, but you can still do lots of cool stuff with that golfer. He'll need rotation. He'll need T-spine mobility. And then we said, what does your perfect workout or your cool workout at the very start look like now? It's probably scrapped up and thrown in the bin. Mark Verstegen, another hero of mine, leader of Exos, one of, probably in my opinion, the best private S&C company, do the basics savagely well. And we have to keep constantly saying that to ourselves. Do the basics savagely well. Motor morons are the people that sat at a desk and became wealthy enough to afford your services. You're expensive. You're going to get lots of motor morons. Motor morons are the ones that went to med school, they're the ones that went to um, IT college and just grafted, and the ones that are doing overtime, and the ones that worked up through the company to get to a position where they can afford your fees. And they'll test your coaching to limit. You need to know how to progress them and regress them. And you listen, with the overstressed worker out there, you and even the athlete, it's 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 very rare that it's linearly straight ahead. There's always peaks and troughs, and you need to prepare yourself and them for that. One of the key things we said is don't coach if you can't do it. If you can't do a lift yourself, do not coach it. And there's no excuse working where you work for anything in the fitness realm that you can't do, barring injury or something like that. I would always recommend to you lose weight, put on weight, try a diet, run a half marathon if you hate half marathons. Get training in your diary minimum twice a week, minimum, and get someone to coach you when you do it. Preferably, if that's not possible, stick to a program someone smarter than you or someone with a better insight than you is giving you. Okay? 10 years of hiring interns, constant feedback is the workouts are where I learned the most. And I've yet to say anyone, all the great physios I've worked with were all the ones that trained minimum twice a week. And they'd peaks and troughs, sometimes they'd lose weight, put on weight, but that's what I want. I want a realistic, I don't want someone going around eating out of Tupperware and wearing, a vest showing off their big muscles. I want someone who's realistic, who's really fit, and knows what it's like to get out of shape and get back in shape, etc., etc. That gives you such a great insight. Dan John, great quote, another person you need to look up. Your goal is to keep your goal the goal. I quite like that. We went through these options: chops, one leg bridging, planks, squats, reaching lunge, and hinging and band rows. I think Moss recorded the reaching lunge. It's one of our favourite but yet trickiest exercise. But if I was to look at you and you came into me after 2 weeks of being an intern and you could do all those exercises perfectly, you're a very, very good trainer. Very, very good trainer. Most people can't do any of these things near well enough, but they think they can, which is kind of scary. So that's something, even just them written there, what are they? 6 exercises, learn them. And then we did a practical, and I love that expression, show me, don't tell me. Here's some books I recommend strongly that you buy. You have, a hard time respecting if you don't buy them. The one in the top left is my book, but I do think it'd be very good. It's only available on Kindle. That's the most dumbed down book on strength and conditioning I think out there at the moment. It's €10 on Kindle. Buy it. Michael Boyle's New Functional Training for Sports is a must own. Every Day's Game Days, must game. Athletic Body and Balance, great book. They're ones I'd start with because they'd be cheap. You'll get them on Amazon, on the Kindle. You can read them, and it'll give you a fantastic appreciation. When you've mastered them, go for the anatomy trains. Go for the more fancy books. You gotta. I believe I would start with those books and then build my repertoire with much harder ones to get through later on.